I am Claire Parker, 34 years old, and I never thought my greatest achievement would become my family's target. After working my way from nothing to home ownership, I was shocked when my parents reappeared after 5 years of silence, demanding I sell my house to cover my sister, Sienna Mitchell's $260,000 debt. When I refused their Family Helps Family guilt trip, they broke in and destroyed my home. What they did not know was that this house held secrets that would ultimately protect me from their schemes. Before I share my story, where are you watching from today? Hit like and subscribe if you have ever had to protect yourself from toxic family members who suddenly needed something from you. Growing up in suburban Denver, our family appeared normal from the outside. My parents worked steady jobs. We lived in a decent neighborhood and we never wanted for necessities. But beneath that veneer of middle-class stability was a dynamic that favored my younger sister Sienna Mitchell from the moment she was born. Sienna Mitchell was the golden child blessed with natural charisma and artistic talent that my parents showcased at every opportunity. School plays, art competitions, dance recital, you name it. Sienna Mitchell was the star, and my parents were her biggest fans. Meanwhile, I was practical, studious, and responsible, traits that earned me the role of family afterthought rather than any recognition. Ida is so independent, my mother would tell relatives with a smile that never quite reached her eyes. She just does her own thing. What she meant was that I had learned to fend for myself because no one was coming to help me. By the time I was 16, I was working part-time jobs while maintaining honorable grades. I saved every penny for college because my parents had made it clear that Sienna Mitchell's education would take priority. She has special talents that need nurturing, my father explained when I asked about their college savings plan. You are smart enough to figure it out. And figure it out I did. I worked 30 hours a week throughout high school, earned a partial scholarship, took out modest loans, and graduated with a business degree from a state university. Meanwhile, Sienna Mitchell attended an exclusive art school in New York with my parents covering her tuition, apartment, and living expenses. After graduation, I landed an entry-level position at a financial services company in Denver. The pay was modest, but I was determined to build a career. I lived frugally, took on roommates, packed lunches, and slowly paid down my student loans while building an emergency fund. Sienna Mitchell, meanwhile, bounced between creative ventures in New York, calling our parents whenever she needed more money for rent or supplies for her latest artistic vision. The breaking point came 5 years ago. Sienna Mitchell had convinced our parents to invest in her art gallery venture. She had found a perfect space in Brooklyn that would surely be the launch pad for her career. My parents, convinced of her inevitable success, emptied their retirement accounts to fund this dream. $60,000 later, the gallery opened with a lavish party that I watched through social media posts, unable to afford the flight to attend. 3 months later, the gallery was failing. Sienna Mitchell had miscalculated expenses, location, viability, and the competitive art market. She called me in tears one evening. Mom and Dad are tapped out. Eda, she sobbed, the gallery needs another $30,000, or everything is lost. You have savings, right? You always save. I did have savings. Nearly $40,000 meticulously accumulated over years of sacrifice. It represented my security, my future, down payment, my proof that diligence mattered. When I hesitated, Sienna Mitchell grew angry. Family helps family. Ida, Mom and Dad gave everything for me. Now it is your turn. When I suggested a business plan or loan terms instead of an outright gift, she hung up on me. An hour later, my mother called. How could you be so selfish? She demanded. Your sister is in crisis. This is her dream. Mom, I worked hard for that money, I tried to explain. I cannot just give it away without some plan for repayment. So, your money is more important than your sister, than this family. My father called next, his disappointment palpable through the phone. We raised you better than this, Ida. Family comes before money. The irony that they had never applied this principle to my education or career was apparently lost on them. When I stood firm, my father delivered the ultimatum that would change everything. If you cannot support this family in its time of need, then perhaps you are not part of this family. I remember the silence that followed, the way my heart seemed to stop beating for a moment. You do not mean that I whispered. Make your choice, Ida. Your sister or your money. I made my choice. I kept my savings. And true to his word, my father cut me out. My calls went unanswered. Birthday cards were returned. Holiday invitations never came. My mother blocked me on social media. And relatives were told I had abandoned the family in their time of need. The gallery failed anyway. Sienna Mitchell moved back home with my parents. Her dream shattered, but her status as the wronged party intact. I was painted as the villain who could have saved everything but chose not to. Those first holidays alone were brutal. I cried through Thanksgiving, Christmas, and my birthday. I started therapy trying to process the abandonment and conditional love that had defined my family relationships. My therapist helped me see that the dynamic had always been unhealthy, that I had been the family scapegoat, while Sienna Mitchell was the golden child, and that setting financial boundaries was not just reasonable, but necessary. Over the next few years, I poured myself into my career. I earned promotions, increased my salary, and continued my disciplined saving habits. My emergency fund grew back, and I started researching first-time home-buying programs. The scent of stale cigarettes and cold coffee, the thump of another unpaid bill hitting the scratched kitchen table, Sienna's laughter from the other room, a careless melody as she FaceTimed about a designer bag. Claire, age 16, traced the water stain on the ceiling, a growing map of her family's neglect, the crushing weight of their expectation that she, the responsible one, would find a way to fix it all. She made her choice. She kept her savings. True to his word, her father cut her out. Calls went unanswered. Birthday cards were returned. Holiday invitations never came. She was the villain, the one who abandoned them, who let her sister's dream shatter. Those first holidays alone were brutal. She cried through Thanksgiving, through Christmas, but Claire was resilient. She built her own safety net, brick by brick. 3 years later, she stood on the wide porch of a 1920s craftsman. The front door creaked open. The air inside smelled of old wood and fresh possibility. Her fingers traced the solid oak banister. This house had survived a century of storms. It had strong bones. It felt like home. She poured her savings into it, every penny she'd protected. This was her independence, her security. She painted every room herself, staying up late after work. Each brushstroke was a declaration. I am not their scapegoat. This is mine. She was finally free. But then, the phone rang. I invited colleagues over for dinner parties, joined the neighborhood association, and befriended the elderly couple next door who shared stories about the area's history. I planted a vegetable garden in the backyard with advice from Mrs. Abernathy across the street, who had been growing tomatoes for 40 years. These connections formed a chosen family that filled the void left by my biological one. We celebrated holidays together, shared resources, and created new traditions. When Thanksgiving approached, instead of facing another lonely meal, I hosted a Friendsgiving potluck that filled my dining room with laughter and genuine affection. My career continued to flourish as well. My company promoted me to senior financial advisor, where I specialized in helping clients establish healthy relationships with money. There was a certain irony in the fact that the very boundaries that had cost me my family now allowed me to help others avoid similar pitfalls. Money is never just about money, I would tell my clients. It is about values, priorities, and boundaries. Clarifying those first makes the financial decisions much easier. My house became more than shelter. It was my sanctuary and achievement made tangible. Each mortgage payment felt like an affirmation. Each improvement reflected my values and tastes, not compromises made to please others. For the first time in my life, I was creating a space that honored my needs without apology. The peace I found in this new chapter sometimes made me wonder if the painful estrangement had actually been a disguised blessing. Without the constant drain of my family's expectations and Sienna Mitchell's crisis, I discovered parts of myself that had never had room to grow. I made decisions based on my authentic desires rather than fear of disapproval. I recognized my own resilience and capacity for joy. 2 years into home ownership, I had created a life that felt genuinely mine. The ache of family estrangement had dulled to a faint pang over the years. I learned to live without the constant heartache of those early days. No more checking my parents' social media, no more flinching when the phone rang, hoping it was them. I had closed that chapter and embraced the new story I was writing. Until it happened. It was an ordinary Tuesday evening. I had just watered my garden, the earthy scent of rain mingling with the fresh herbs as I prepared a simple dinner. My phone buzzed with an unfamiliar number. I hesitated, almost letting it go to voicemail, but something urged me to answer. "Hello, Claire, it's Mom." The wooden spoon I had in my hand slipped, clattering to the floor. 5 years of silence shattered, and she called as casually as if we spoke just yesterday. My heart pounded in my chest. Emotions crashed through me. Hope, anger, confusion, longing. "Mom." My voice felt strange, almost childlike. "Yes, sweetie. How are you?" The normalcy of her tone was disorienting. She didn't acknowledge the years of silence, the pain, the neglect. Just, "How are you?" "I'm surprised to hear from you," I managed. "Well, we've been thinking about you. Your father and I would love to have you over for dinner this Friday. Sienna Mitchell will be there too. It's been too long since we've all been together." Too long? As if the estrangement was a mutual decision instead of their explicit choice. Somehow, I found myself agreeing to the dinner before my mind could catch up. After hanging up, I sank to the kitchen floor, back against the cabinets, trying to process what just happened. Why now? Why this sudden interest in reconnecting? Part of me, the lonely child that craved their approval, felt a flicker of excitement at the prospect of reconciliation. Yet another part of me, the resilient woman I had fought to become, hesitated. I had built a life free from their influence. I found a chosen family of friends and neighbors who celebrated holidays with me, who shared laughs and resources. Now, would I let their whirlwind suck me back in? When the dinner day finally arrived, the doorbell echoed through my home. I paused, inhaling deeply. Outside was the familiar chaos of my past, the family I had fought to distance myself from, their looming presence heavy in the air. As I opened the door, Sienna Mitchell's charming smile only added to the tight knot in my stomach. Her presence was intoxicating yet suffocating, filled with unspoken debts and family drama. I could feel the old expectations creeping back, clinging like an unwelcome shadow. Could I handle it? In the excitement of the evening, laughter echoed through my home. I watched my family, now a mix of familiar faces and painful memories, and felt a wave of conflicting emotions. Old resentments brewing. Yet a part of me was drawn to the warmth of being together again. But as the evening wore on, their expectations surfaced. The casual conversations turned into probing questions about my career, my home, and my plans, all leading to that unvoiced desire to have them bail Sienna Mitchell out of her spiraling debts. Would they ever see my life as my own? Or would they always see me as an extension of their family's demands? Just like that, I was thrust back into the conflict I desperately tried to escape. As I navigated dinner conversations filled with tension and unspoken judgments, my heart was racing. Could I embrace my independence while facing the ghosts of my past? With every moment, the old struggle roared to life within me. My home, my sanctuary, was it strong enough to withstand their excuses and entitlements? I had fought so hard to protect my financial security from their toxic grip. Would they destroy the hard-won peace I had finally found? As dinner came to a close, I realized this night was more than just a family reunion. It was a crossroad. My choices lay before me, stark and raw. Would I take a step into the fear of dependence, or could I stand my ground and reclaim my life once more? The other part of me, the independent woman who had built a life from the ground up, was deeply suspicious. I called my therapist the next day. I needed an emergency session. I sat across from Dr. Rivers, my hands clenched. "What do you hope might happen at this dinner?" she asked. I took a breath. "Best case? They apologize. They finally see how unfair they've been. Maybe we start over." She looked at me, her gaze steady. "And what do you think is more likely to happen?" I sighed, the truth heavy on my tongue. "They want something. They always want something. They wouldn't be here after 5 years without a reason." Dr. Rivers simply nodded. "Realistic expectations, Claire. They're crucial. What boundaries will protect you?" We spent the rest of the hour building my armor. I would not discuss my finances. I would not apologize for my past. At the first sign of manipulation, I would walk away. These were my rules, my protection. Friday evening came too soon. A knot of pure anxiety twisted in my stomach as I drove to my childhood home. I'd chosen my outfit like a uniform, professional, not flashy. The bottle of wine I brought was polite, but sent no signals. The house, it was different. The lawn was overgrown. Paint peeled from the siding. My mother's prized flower beds were just weeds. This neglect was a silent message. It unsettled me. I walked to the front door. The air smelled of coming rain. My knock echoed. My father answered. I almost didn't recognize him. His hair was completely gray. Deep lines were carved around his eyes. He seemed smaller, his clothes hanging loose on his frame. "Claire," he said. His voice was flat. His expression was a closed door. No hug, no smile, just my name. "Come in," he said. It was not a welcome. It was an instruction. The gap between us felt wider than ever. The scent of my mother's expensive perfume hit me like a wall. Her smile was bright, but hollow. That smile. It unlocked a flood of memories. Every birthday, every holiday, a chorus of critiques. My hair, my clothes, my quiet nature. Nothing was ever quite enough. The air felt heavy with old expectations. I could hear her voice in my head. "Why can't you be more like your sister?" My heart tightened. Then my eyes adjusted. I saw the cracks, the faded walls, the missing furniture, the cheap prints where real art used to hang. It was a museum of our family's decline. The taste of nostalgia in my mouth was pure bitterness. "There she is," my mother said, her voice too sweet. She pulled me into a brief, stiff hug. Then she held me at arm's length. Her eyes scanned me, judging. "Let me look at you. Still so serious. You need to smile more, sweetie." And just like that, I was 16 again. I took a quiet breath. I pictured Dr. Rivers' calm face. "Stay centered. You are an adult." "It's good to see you too, Mom." She waved a hand around the room. "The house looks familiar." "I noticed some changes," I said carefully. "Oh, we've been meaning to do updates. You know how it is. Never enough time. Or money." Her words hung in the air. A deliberate, casual hint. My guard shot up. We moved to the living room. More was missing. The elegant couch. Gone. A worn IKEA sofa stood in its place. The expensive landscapes on the walls had been replaced by faded family photos in plastic frames. The silence felt expensive. My mother poured wine into mismatched glasses. "Sienna Mitchell is running a little late. She had an appointment she couldn't miss." She smiled, a real one this time. "But she is so excited to see you." Then the questions began. "So, where are you living these days?" my dad asked, his voice flat. "Still with that financial company?" Mom added. "Have you been promoted? Buying a home in this economy must be so challenging. Are you still renting?" I answered like I'd practiced. Truthful, but vague. I mentioned my promotion, but not my salary. I said I'd bought a home, but not that it was a fully paid condo. Not that I was secure. With each careful answer, I saw it. The sideways glances between them. Their interest wasn't about me. It was about my money. "And you're still single?" My mother's question came with its old familiar tone of disappointment. "I'm focused on my career and my home right now," I said, my voice steady. "It keeps me busy." The unspoken words in the room were deafening. They weren't just asking about my life. They were appraising it. The laughter from Sienna's charming performance echoed through the room, a chaotic mix of emotions swirling within Claire. The scent of rain through an open window mixed with the pungent aroma of the simple meal. A world away from Sienna's sweet, expensive perfume. The air felt thick with unspoken demands. Claire took a breath, ready to speak her truth, but Sienna's eyes suddenly darted past her shoulder. Her smile vanished. Her face went pale. "Dad, what is that?" All eyes turned to the worn IKEA sofa. A single, official-looking envelope had slipped from behind a cushion. Its return address was stark, unmistakable. A law firm. For a heartbeat, the only sound was the rustle of a leaf outside. Their father's unreadable mask finally cracked, revealing pure panic. Sienna's financial nightmare was just the beginning. An older, deeper secret was in the room with us. Their entire family foundation was about to crumble. What is that doing out?" he stammered, lunging for the letter. But it was too late. The carefully constructed performance was over. The truth was out. My mother's hand flew to her mouth. "Robert, no." Sienna's glamorous facade shattered completely. Her financial crisis was a drop in the bucket. This was about the house itself, our childhood home, the last thread of security. Their plan wasn't just to ask me for money. They had already risked everything, and they had put my name on it. The forgiveness I thought I'd mustered evaporated. This was betrayal. The landlord will not cover vendors demanding payment. And my business partner bailed with half our operating capital. I set down my fork. "That sounds serious. Have you consulted a financial advisor?" "We do not need an advisor," my mother interjected. "We need family pulling together during hard times." And there it was. The true purpose of this reunion dinner laid bare in my mother's meaningful gaze. I took a sip of water, preparing myself for what would come next. "How bad is it?" I asked, looking directly at Sienna Mitchell. The question hung in the air as my sister suddenly became intensely interested in rearranging the food on her plate. $260,000. My father finally answered, his voice flat. I nearly choked on my water. $260,000 men? How is that even possible? Sienna Mitchell lifted her chin defensively. It is not just the boutique. There were some personal loans too, and the credit cards I used for inventory, plus the renovations on my apartment. "You renovated a rental apartment?" I interrupted, unable to hide my shock. "It is an investment in my personal brand," Sienna Mitchell snapped. "Clients expect a certain aesthetic when they visit. I cannot exactly host potential buyers in some dumpy little place." My mother reached across the table to pat Sienna Mitchell's hand. "Your sister has always had vision. Sometimes being ahead of the curve means taking financial risks." I looked around the table, trying to process what I was hearing. "So, you invited me here after 5 years of silence to tell me about Sienna Mitchell's debt." My parents exchanged glances before my father leaned forward. "We have done everything we can, Ada. We have emptied our savings, taken a second mortgage on the house. We have even sold most of our valuables," my mother added, gesturing around the living room at the gaps where art and antiques had once stood. "I am sorry to hear that," I said carefully. "I built my career in savings alone while you funded her gallery, her boutique, and apparently her luxury apartment renovations. That was different, my mother insisted. Sienna Mitchell has special talents that need nurturing, and I do not. The hurt child inside me surfaced briefly before I pushed her back down. This is not about talent. This is about responsibility. I have been financially responsible my entire life, and now you want me to bail out Sienna Mitchell's irresponsibility. Sienna Mitchell slammed her hand on the table, making the dishes jump. God, you have always been so jealous of me. This holier-than-thou act about being responsible is just your way of feeling superior. Jealous? I repeated incredulously. Sienna Mitchell, I have worked for everything I have while watching you get endless handouts. And yet, I never asked for a penny from any of you. Even now, after 5 years of silence, you have not asked how I am or what my life is like. You just want what I have. We want this family back together, my father said sternly. This situation could be a blessing in disguise, bringing us all closer. By me sacrificing everything and Sienna Mitchell sacrificing nothing, I stood up from the table, my appetite long gone. I will not sell my house. I will not pay Sienna Mitchell's debts. Her financial problems are not my responsibility. My mother's tears spilled over. How can you be so cruel? We raised you better than this. Family helps family. You cut me out of this family, I reminded her. You made it very clear that I was only welcome if I handed over my savings. Nothing has changed except the amount you are demanding. My father stood as well. His face flushed with anger. So, that is it. You will let your sister lose everything. Let our retirement be wiped out. All because you will not share your good fortune. My good fortune. I laughed without humor. There was no fortune involved, just work, sacrifice, and smart decisions, none of which seems to be valued in this family. The notification bubble on Claire Parker's budgeting app pulsed like a warning light. The account she'd fought tooth and nail to build, the lifeline to her future, was about to be attacked. Her heart raced as the final devastating email from Sienna Mitchell glowed on the screen. Don't make me do this, Claire, but you've left me no choice. You'll be hearing from my lawyer tomorrow. Alone in her hard-won sanctuary, the floor seemed to drop out from under her. What wave of legal chaos had she just triggered? Claire had spent years trying to free herself from the toxic grip of her family. They painted her as selfish, clinging to dependency while seamlessly ignoring their own messes. Memories flickered, yelling matches, guilt trips, tears. Hadn't she earned her independence? Why did Sienna think she could simply extend a hand and take from her? Outside, the early morning rain painted a silver sheen on the pavements. She longed for quiet, yet her mind buzzed with dread. 5 years ago, when her father had issued the same ultimatum, she stood firm. How was this any different? Nothing has changed, Claire reminded herself, her breath steadying as she gathered resolve. She wouldn't be the family's financial crutch any longer. She pulled on her jacket, each movement echoing in her mind. Her heart raced as she opened the door, stepping into a world infused with tension. The texts from her family began to flow like an unyielding river. You'll regret this, they warned. Each message cut deeper than the last. Your so-called independence is destroying us. Claire's hand trembled as she blocked their numbers. But the accusations kept coming. Emails, social media posts, old relatives chipping in, painting her as the villain in this twisted family saga. Your cousin Sandy sold her car. Is that what real family does? A relative fired off through an email. Unlike Claire's so-called family, she had tirelessly built a life filled with hard work and integrity. What was wrong with wanting to live without being dragged down by their burdens? Self-doubt seeped into her chest. Was she truly the selfish one? Her therapist, Dr. Rivers, was her rock that week. They're using guilt to control you. Each word resonated like a lifeline. Claire leaned on her support system. Friends like Tara and Mrs. Abernathy reminded her of the warmth that existed outside of her toxic ties. Just when Claire thought the storm of drama had subsided, the doorbell rang. She peered through the peephole and froze. There they stood, her parents, looking subdued and almost contrite. But could she trust this facade? The flicker of hope mixed with fear as uncertainty knotted in her stomach. Did they come to apologize? Or were darker schemes brewing just beneath the surface? Against my better judgment, I opened the door. "What are you doing here?" I asked, not stepping aside. "We came to talk," my mother said softly. "May we come in, please?" I allowed them inside. They stood in my entryway, taking in my home with quiet assessment. "This is lovely," my mother offered. "You've done so well for yourself." "Thank you," I replied, my voice stiff. "What did you want to talk about?" My father sighed heavily. "We were too harsh the other night. The stress with Sienna. It's overwhelming." "We miss you," my mother added, her eyes welling. "All this fighting. We're a family." A part of me wanted to believe them. The little girl who craved their approval saw an opening. "I miss what we could have been too," I admitted, "but I can't ignore the toxicity." "Will you show us around?" my mother asked, her tone light. "We want to see the life you've built." The tour was awkward but civil. They admired my renovations, asked about the neighborhood. For a moment it felt almost normal. I let my guard down. Then we reached my home office. "This is where I work," I explained. My mother drifted to my desk, her eyes scanning the papers there. "So this is where you keep everything, mortgage papers and such?" she asked casually. Alarm bells shrieked in my mind. "Some of it. Most are digital now." My father opened the closet door without asking. He stared at the file boxes inside. "Very organized," he noted. His voice was flat. His eyes were cold. The performance was over. I finally saw it. They weren't here for me. They were here for a plan. Claire Parker was diligent, fiercely independent, and determined to carve out her own path. For too long, she had shielded herself from the toxic clouds that loomed over her family's legacy, especially from her sister, Sienna Mitchell, who was intent on keeping Claire bound to their family's financial struggles. Just as Claire relished her hard-earned victory of a peaceful home, the doorbell rang. She took a breath, feeling her heart hammer like the rain tapping against the window pane. Peering through the peephole, she froze. Her parents stood at the door, an unsettling mix of humility and hidden motives in their expressions. What could they possibly want now? Against her instincts, Claire opened the door, her resolve cementing. "What are you doing here?" she asked. "We came to talk," her mother replied, eyes wide with a hint of vulnerability. "May we come in?" Hesitantly, Claire stepped aside, her defenses high as they entered, glancing around her sanctuary. "This is lovely," her mother said, almost wistfully. For a fleeting moment, Claire entertained the thought. Maybe they had come to apologize. "I miss what we could have been too," Claire echoed back, hesitation in her voice. But her heart weighed heavy with awareness. Their atmosphere was fragile, like the rustling leaves outside, ready to snap back into chaos. The tour of her home began. Their admiration felt almost authentic, but unease lingered in the air, prickling Claire's skin. When they reached her home office, she sensed a shift. Browsing her desk, her mother casually asked, "So, this is where you keep everything, mortgage papers and such?" An alarm rang in Claire's mind. Why the sudden interest? Her father's eyes betrayed his intentions when he opened her closet without permission, scanning the organized documents. "Very organized," he noted, and Claire felt a chill race down her spine. It dawned on her. They weren't here for a family reunion. They had a plan. The talk turned sinister as her father prodded, "What if you took out a home equity loan instead of selling?" Claire looked at him, bewildered. A way to keep her house while still bailing out Sienna? "So you want me to take on debt to fund her mess?" she shot back. Refusing to play the role of the family savior any longer, Claire's voice became steel. "It's time for you to leave." Suddenly, her mother's placating tone vanished, replaced by a fierce reproach. "After all, we sacrificed for you." Claire's heart raced, knowing they were not here for her but for their own agenda. She ushered them out, lingering in the moment like the scent of rain mingling with the tension that hung heavily in the air. As they drove away, an icy unease settled around Claire. It wasn't over. This wasn't just a setback. Their departure felt like a quiet storm brewing, a mere shift in strategy designed to keep their oppressive grip tight. Little did they know, Claire was not just watching them leave. Her hidden nanny cam, streaming live to her growing audience of personal finance enthusiasts, broadcasted every exploitative exchange. They had just exposed their schemes to the world, their words echoing into the silent void of the internet, illuminating Claire's struggle for independence as a beacon of resilience in the face of insidious manipulation. My instincts screamed something was terribly wrong. My parents' visit wasn't just a reunion, it was a reconnaissance mission. I double-checked all my locks that night, a tight coil of anxiety in my gut. The sanctuary I built felt suddenly fragile, threatened by the very people who should defend it. 3 days later, I returned from work to find my front door ajar. A chill ran through me as I approached, the faint sounds of rustling echoing inside. My heart raced. Was I just overreacting? Or was this a true break-in? Just then, a crash shattered my doubts. It was my mother's voice issuing orders. "Check the office again. The deed has to be here somewhere." Panic forced the call to 911 from my lips. "Someone is burglarizing my house," I whispered, my eyes darting toward the door. The dispatcher urged me to stay outside, but every fiber of my being urged me to act. My home, my haven, was being violated by the people who were supposed to protect it. I pushed the door open, and the sight took my breath away. The living room was a disaster. Books strewn across the floor, couch cushions slashed open, stuffing littering the hardwood. And there, in bright red lipstick, a single word stared back at me. Selfish. "What are you doing?" I shouted, my voice echoing off the walls, stunning my father as he rifled through my desk drawers. "Ida!" My mother emerged from the hallway, feigning surprise but lacking any semblance of remorse. "You're home early," she said, her tone a mix of casual and calculated. "Early? This is my house." I gestured wildly at the wreckage surrounding me, feeling the tension in the air thicken like an approaching storm. How did it come to this? Why were they here? The answer loomed like a dark cloud, ready to burst. In that moment, everything shifted. I'd been the good daughter, the responsible one. But now I was ready to stand my ground. The realization struck me like lightning. It wasn't just my home at stake. It was my independence, my peace, my future. Sienna Mitchell appeared from my bedroom, clutching a stack of papers, found the mortgage documents she announced before seeing me in the doorway. Her triumphant expression faltered only slightly. "You do not understand," my father said, his tone oddly calm given the circumstances. "This is for your own good, for the family. My own good. You broke into my house and destroyed my things." I was shaking now, phone still in hand with the 911 dispatcher listening. "We are teaching you a valuable lesson about priorities," my mother said as if this explained everything. "Things can be replaced. Family cannot. Is that what this is? A lesson." I looked around at the devastation of my carefully curated home. Breaking and entering. Destruction of property. These are crimes. "Do not be so dramatic," Sienna Mitchell scoffed, still holding my financial documents. "It is just stuff. Stuff you value more than your own sister." "Apparently, the police are on their way," I informed them, my voice steadier than I felt. "You all need to leave now." Instead of looking concerned, my father actually laughed. "The police? You would call the police on your own parents. They will not do anything. We are family. We have every right to be here." "You have no right to be here," I countered. "I did not invite you in. You broke my door and destroyed my property. We made you." My mother hissed a viciousness in her expression I had never seen before. "Everything you have comes from us. This house, your job, all of it exists because we created you." The twisted logic stunned me momentarily. In that pause, sirens became audible in the distance. "You are really doing this," Sienna Mitchell said incredulously, "calling the cops on us when all we needed was a little help. $260,000 is nothing to you with this house." "It is everything to me," I replied. "This house represents years of work, sacrifice, and independence that none of you have ever respected or acknowledged." The sirens grew louder and panic finally registered on my parents' faces. My father grabbed for the papers in Sienna Mitchell's hands. "We need to go," he urged, moving toward the back door. "No," I blocked their path. "You stay right here and explain to the officers what you were doing." "Move, Ida," my father demanded, his voice low and threatening. "Or what? You will hurt me too. Destroy more of my things. Go ahead, add assault to the charges." Blue lights flashed through my windows as patrol cars pulled up outside. My parents and Sienna Mitchell exchanged frantic looks, their plan clearly unraveling. "This is just a family disagreement," my mother said loudly, as if rehearsing what she would tell the police. "Nothing for authorities to be concerned about." A sharp knock at the door was followed by an authoritative voice. "Police, open up." I moved to answer it, keeping my eyes on my family. 2 officers entered, taking in the destruction with professional assessment. "What happened here, ma'am?" the first officer asked. "I came home to find my parents and sister had broken in. As you can see, they have destroyed much of my property and were attempting to steal documents." My voice was surprisingly calm as I pointed to the papers still clutched in my father's hand. "That is ridiculous," my mother protested. "We are her family. We were just visiting." "Did you have permission to enter the home?" the officer asked her directly. "We do not need permission. We are her parents." The second officer, an older woman with a non-nonsense demeanor, shook her head. "That is not how the law works, ma'am. Adult children's homes are not extensions of parental property. This is all a misunderstanding." My father tried his authoritative tone, failing to impress the officers. We were concerned about Ida and came to check on her. The door was open, and the destroyed furniture, the writing on the wall. The first officer gestured to the selfish scrolled across my living room. "She has always been dramatic," Sienna Mitchell cut in. "She probably did that herself to frame us." The female officer raised an eyebrow. "And those documents in your hand, did she plant those too?" As the officers separated my family members for questioning, the reality of the situation seemed to finally dawn on them. This was not going to be dismissed as a family squabble. There would be consequences. My neighbors had gathered outside, drawn by the police presence. Mrs. Abernathy stood on my lawn, concern etched on her kind face. Mr. Jenkins from across the street was filming with his phone, having apparently captured my family being escorted to separate patrol cars for questioning. Inside, I gave my statement, explaining the history of estrangement, the recent demands for money, the suspicious visit days earlier, and finding them destroying my home today. They were specifically looking for my mortgage documents. "Indeed," I explained. "My sister is in significant debt, and they want me to sell my house to pay it off." The officers took photographs of the damage-collected evidence and assured me they were taking the matter seriously. When they asked if I wanted to press charges, I did not hesitate. Yes, all of them. As they prepared to transport my family to the station, my mother's composure finally broke. "You cannot do this to us. We are your parents. Family helps family. This is not help," I told her, my voice breaking slightly. "This is abuse, and it stops today." Only when the patrol cars had driven away with my family inside did I allow myself to fully absorb what had happened. Standing in the wreckage of my living room, surrounded by the shattered remnants of the life I had built, I began to shake uncontrollably. Mrs. Abernathy appeared at my side, wrapping a steadying arm around my shoulders. "You come stay with me tonight, dear," she said firmly. We will deal with this mess tomorrow." I nodded mutely, too overwhelmed to speak, and let her guide me away from the broken pieces of both my home and my family. The dust had finally settled in my ransacked home office, the scent of rain from an open window mixed with the smell of overturned books. That's when I found it. An envelope, kicked behind my desk during the chaos. Inside was a document I'd completely forgotten, the historical designation certificate for my house. My practical mind started racing. What did this mean? I stared at the thick document, my heart pounding. But as I flipped to the crucial page, my blood ran cold. This wasn't just a charming detail, it was a legal fortress. My house couldn't be sold without the Historical Society's approval. Every original feature was protected by law. This was why they tore this room apart. They needed these papers to try and bypass these protections, or forge a sale before anyone noticed. A sickening realization hit me. Their entire scheme was built on destroying my financial security. I went straight to a lawyer. Jessica Reynolds specialized in real estate and family law. She reviewed everything. What they attempted was highly illegal, she confirmed. Breaking and entering, destruction of property, attempted theft, and a planned real estate fraud. "What should I do now?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. The law was finally on my side. But was it enough to stop them for good? I asked, still feeling shaken. The weight of it all pressed down on me. "First, we file for a restraining order. You've got clear grounds given the damage to your home and their intent to commit fraud," Jessica said. I felt a flicker of hope. "Second, we document everything for the criminal case that the district attorney is building. Third, we'll file a civil suit for the damages to your property." As the weeks stretched on, those legal proceedings became my lifeline. The restraining order was granted without a second thought. The judge's expression shifted to concern as he examined my devastated living room photographs and the cruel messages from my family. Then came the real shock. During the hearing, I watched Sienna Mitchell break under pressure. Tears streamed down her face as she pleaded, "It wasn't supposed to go this far. We just needed those papers to check our options." But beneath her facade, I caught glimpses of chaos. She confessed to a mountain of debt, maxed-out credit cards, loan sharks haunting her every move. "It's close to $260,000, she stammered, but the numbers felt like a shrinking bubble. And then, the bombshell. Our parents had sold off heirlooms and drained their retirement funds to keep her afloat. The fragile threads of their financial world were unraveling, and I was left to witness the fallout. "When you were the only one with resources left, what did you think was going to happen?" the judge asked, his voice a mixture of disappointment and disbelief. I could feel my heart pounding. Did they ever consider a simple request for a loan? I was done being their safety net. The gavel cracked. I exhaled, the sterile courtroom air tasting of victory. But the twist wasn't over. As the bailiff led a sobbing Sienna away, my father didn't watch his favorite daughter. He stared only at me. His whisper was a venomous confession that shattered my last remaining illusion about our family. "It was always her plan, Claire. We just went along with it. You were always the strong one." My knees nearly buckled. The narrative flipped completely. Sienna was the mastermind. Our parents? Just her weak, complicit followers? All the pressure, the guilt, the blame. It was her creation. They were too financially drained and emotionally broken to say no. The legal victory was complete. The restraining order was a solid wall between us. Their probation and mandatory financial counseling were a start. The settlement from their insurance didn't just fix my broken door, it installed a top-tier security system. But the invisible scars took longer to heal. A leaf rustling outside my window would jolt me awake. I checked my locks 3 times each night. Healing came from an unexpected place. My community. Neighbors I'd barely known became my foundation. Mrs. Abernathy brought homemade casseroles. Mr. Jenkins installed bright motion sensor lights. My coworkers covered for me without question. They built a support network I never had from my own blood. They showed me what real family looks like. It isn't about DNA. It's about showing up. It's about building a life where you feel safe. Unlike the conditional love my biological family had offered, these relationships were based on mutual respect and genuine care. 6 months after the break-in, my house was not only restored, but improved. New paint covered the hateful word that had been scrolled on my wall. Upgraded furniture replaced the damaged pieces. The garden flourished under Mrs. Abernathy's expert guidance, and most importantly, the sense of security and peace I had cultivated before was gradually returning. Through a mutual acquaintance, I learned that Sienna Mitchell had entered a serious financial counseling program and was working a retail job for the first time in her life. My parents had downsized to an apartment and were adjusting to retirement without the cushion they had expected. These changes, while difficult for them, were perhaps the first steps toward healthier patterns. 1 year after the incident, as the restraining order approached its expiration date, I received a letter from Sienna Mitchell forwarded through my lawyer as permitted by the court. Unlike her previous communications, this one contained no demands, accusations, or guilt trips. Instead, it offered what appeared to be a genuine apology. "I am sorry for what we did to your home and your trust," she wrote. "I am beginning to understand how my financial choices affected everyone, and how unfair our expectations of you were. I do not expect forgiveness, but I wanted you to know that I am working on myself and taking responsibility for my actions for the first time." I did not respond immediately. The apology was a positive step, but trust once shattered could not be instantly restored by words alone. I decided to wait and see if changed behavior would follow the changed rhetoric. The experience had taught me that family is not defined by blood, but by respect, support, and healthy boundaries. The people who showed up for me during my darkest moments, who helped rebuild not just my home, but my sense of safety, were my true family. The warm Denver air was thick with the scent of rain and fresh-cut grass. Fireflies danced like tiny sparks over my garden. I breathed deep. This peace was mine. I built it. Then I saw her, Sienna. Her car crunched to a halt at my curb. Old instincts screamed to run, but my feet stayed planted on my porch. This was my home. She walked up, all practiced charm and apologies, but her words soon turned sharp. A demand. Her debt was her own. She expected me to fix it. The golden hour light gilded my home, my sanctuary. It held every sacrifice I'd ever made. Her pleas turned to venom. The mask of the favored sister finally fell. My heart pounded, but my voice was calm. I finally spoke the word I was never allowed to say. No. The answer is no. A silence fell. The weight of a lifetime of guilt simply lifted. She stared, shocked. Then she turned and left. I watched her go. The screen door clicked shut behind me. A soft, final sound. A single tear traced my cheek. It was not from sorrow, but relief. My sanctuary was finally, completely, my own.